Hey nerds, we are talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi Part 4. We are going to give our spoiler-free reviews of the episode and then get into a full spoiler breakdown of the episode starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Social. I am Nathan.
Hello there, I'm Priya.
And I'm Colin.
Hey, so if you're watching this on replay, we're going to have chapter breaks below so you can just jump to the spoiler part of the conversation if you want to jump there. So the spoiler-free logline provided to us for this episode is Obi-Wan plots a mission. Not much of a description, but, you know, it doesn't spoil anything. So, all right, Priya, what do you think of this episode?
I think there is a lot of deja vu. There's a lot of clear parallels to one of the episodes that the director has chosen to make. I think the pacing was a bit odd for me, to be honest, especially compared to last week. So I do think there was definitely a shift in tone and reaction from my side. I think it felt like a bridge episode where they're trying to take a breath after last week and really pivoting into the climax. Overall, I thought the episode itself was fine, but I think because of the adrenaline from last week, the pacing felt slightly off for me.
Colin, what do you think?
I liked the episode. I think that there are some parts to it that was better than last week for me that I really enjoyed. There were some parts that were slow, but then there are also some parts that are similar to some other themes of other Star Wars property, which we can get into as well. So I think that having that combination of a recall of the older Star Wars property, bringing in some of the new stuff, bringing back some older stuff from 25 years ago. That's actually a good kind of, there's some taste for every fan, let's just say, each of the Star Wars properties that has happened over the course of the 40 years of this franchise. Overall, again, I like the episode, but yeah, there's still some problems here and there with it, but at the same time, I'd say in some instances it's better than last week, but then there's some instances where last week's episode was better than this week's.
Yeah, I think I'm generally on the same page as you guys. But I had to say I definitively liked last week better than this week. Just because of some things on the edges. I like this episode, but as Priya said, this was also like a bridge episode to me. It was the shortest episode we've gotten, like at 38 minutes, and that was including all the previously on stuff. So that was included in the 38 minutes. It also didn't really advance the plot much, like either the Obi-Wan Vader plot or some of the other things that were going on as well in the season. There were a few technical issues that I noticed as well that were a little weird that we can talk about when we actually get into the spoiler part of this conversation. That being said, there were some really great set piece action scenes that I liked. The acting in this show is also pretty good, especially from Ewan McGregor. The little girl who is playing Leia, Vivien, Lyra Blair, is also doing a very good job. There were some very interesting, intense scenes in this episode with her that she acted very well in those scenes. So I appreciate that. But overall, I think it was a little bit less enjoyable just because, like I said, it was a little bit of filler. I feel like they maybe could have made the last episode longer and the next episode a little bit longer and made it 5 episodes. Because it was a very short episode. Maybe distribute things around a little bit better. I'd give it like a 7 out of 10 if I were rating it. So that's what I think about the episode. Any other thoughts, guys, before we jump into the spoiler breakdown?
One other thing you mentioned about the acting. I think that Moses Ingram just keeps being very impressive throughout the whole run. She's been pretty much the one that's the most compelling out of all the characters. Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor has his ups and downs and things like that. Part of it is probably because of plot, but still he's doing a good job. Like you mentioned, Vivien Lyra Blair, who plays Leia, really awesome too. But Moses Ingram has just been very consistent. Like just the sense of dread, the sense of evilness, and just the scheming around her really played very well overall.
Yeah. She's I was going to say something that would be spoiled. We'll get into spoiler talk in a second. I'll say it right after we jump over. But generally, I agree with what you just said about Moses Ingram. I'm glad that she's in the show. All right, so I guess we can jump into the spoiler talk of the conversation. But before we do that, I'd like to say if you're enjoying the conversation, please comment down below to join in on the conversation. Like and subscribe to get more content like this. We really appreciate it. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the summer to give you more reviews and content like this from diverse points of view. So we really appreciate it, and it will really helps us out. All right, so with that, spoilers ahead. All right, so what I was going to say is I like Moses Ingram. I just wish they actually told me more about her backstory in this episode.
We got like snippets.
Yeah, you get a sense of what happened based upon how she was interrogating Leia, but like I wanted a whole flashback, and I didn't get that, which is why I rated this in like the mid-range of episodes. It was a lot of filler, except for those cool scenes with Obi-Wan down the corridor. And Obi-Wan, like, with a lightsaber in the dark, with those two stormtroopers. Yeah, Colin, you were saying just before we started that some people are saying that the direction on these episodes are off, but like, when you come up with like scenes like that, and also Obi-Wan in the last episode in the dark with the lightsaber, and he's like basically afraid, and Vader's coming through the dark like a horror villain. Like, those are decisions made by the director. She's doing an excellent job. So
yeah, she really is. And it made me think for a second, because they did the scene in the dark again with his lightsaber. Yeah. And I remember when Leia asked him, what does the Force feel like? Were you scared of the dark? Yeah. And when the lights turn on, does it make you feel safe? And just that parallel of like him identifying again with the Force and being that light in the darkness when it's just Leia's in the dark, trapped in this thing. I just thought it was beautiful. Yeah. So I love the use of the lighting, especially in that scene. So, and kudos to Vivien, Lyra, Blair. I feel like she gets better every episode, and this was like the sassy.
When she's interrogating. So I think they're trying to basically riff on a couple of scenes. The interrogation scene that Rey has with Kylo Ren, and he can't break her down, and Leia's just staring back at her. She's saying, is this like staring contest, or what's happening? That was awesome.
That quote actually reminded me with Poe Dameron with Kylo. This was the first time when they got captured, when Poe Dameron got captured. So again, like I said in the non-spoiler part, there are callbacks to the newer stuff. There's callbacks to OG stuff. There's callbacks to like the prequels as well. Mm-hmm. So you can see that even with the fight scene with Obi-Wan with the lightsaber, it reminded you a lot of the prequels of how dynamic he was. But of course, he's lessened. He's weakened, much more weakened because of it. Mm-hmm. But definitely see that there were some hints and echoes of what happened in the past and how he was brilliant with the lightsaber. And
he's definitely getting back in his groove. Like he saw his twirly move that he did in the prequels in that corridor. So he's definitely getting back in the saddle and the swing of things.
Yeah. Slowly getting his mojo back. Well, with Leia's help, and then also just seeing allies again and being called general again, and he's definitely getting his mojo back.
So, quick note: that was O'Shea Jackson Jr. That is.
It was. I was going to jump back to that because we were talking about the corridor scene. But yes, that's O'Shea Jackson Jr. A lot of people thought that he was going to be a Jedi. He talks about his wife, who is a Jedi, or at least she was Force sensitive, and she was taken from him. For a moment, I was thinking, is he talking about Reva? But no, I don't think he's talking about Reva.
I had that moment for a second. I was like, nah, it can't be. But I also was like, this was what I was saying with the pacing issue. He went from, this is my problem, to want help, you got it. And
made no sense whatsoever. Like, why even have him be reluctant for a half a second? And then he called him General in the first place, so he already had some reverence for him. He knew what he did in the Clone Wars. So that was, I don't understand what the switch was. He just said, you don't know what the Empire, all the General had to say is that you don't know what the Empire is capable of, and he just remembered his wife that was killed.
That's the Jedi mind trick there.
Yeah, that's a little bit of sloppy writing. Or it's a little bit of sloppy.
That's the job. It's just, hey, you just wave the arms like, hey.
But it was just so fast. Like, this whole sequence, I was like, okay, they've already come up with the plan conveniently. It was a lot of shadowing with episode 4, like sneak in with the false codes, and she's like, I'll just use my officer credentials. So I get it, but it was just like, these guys, these like ragtag group of 3 farmers have the schematics.
Yeah, the Rebel Alliance is not even a thing now. It's basically just people trying to get away through the path. I don't know. This isn't like Death Star plans. I think that's more of a top secret facility, but it's still Empire facility. Although they did say in this briefing, and I forgot to actually turn on closed captioning when I was recording this. He did say in the briefing that they don't know what's underneath. And I feel like the plans of the Death Star was far more detailed because they knew exactly where to hit it to blow it up. But so I guess these are just long range scans of the facility because they don't know what's underneath. So I guess someone could have
But they did know Vader wasn't there.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they knew. That's like, how are they getting that intelligence? Like, at this point, I feel like they're just all running. They don't have a whole intel. Although she's an officer, so maybe there's other officers that are also part of the Empire that are tipping them off. So it's possible that they have other people.
Yeah, that was established in one of the animated series that they were people that became part of what become the Rebel Alliance through different things and things like that. The reason why I'm not saying that because Priya hasn't watched some of the animation stuff. So.
I know that it does come up. Yeah, there are definitely people within the Empire that the Rebel Alliance wouldn't really work if there weren't people playing both sides, all the way up to Senator Organa, who stays in the Senate and of the Empire, so he's playing both sides. So there are lots of people that are inside or working behind the scenes as part of the Rebel Alliance. Yeah, so I guess they got it from somewhere in their network there. So yeah, this scene. So I didn't really have an issue with the hologram. Mostly it was just about, I can't help you. Do you know what the Empire? Do you know what the Empire does? Oh wait, I had a wife. It's like,
you insulted me, but I'm gonna now give you everything.
Yeah. Okay, whatever.
It felt like there was like dialogue missing there.
I feel like there was some dialogue missing, or maybe there was just like a time jump missing. If they had cut back to the Leia Reva scene and then he came back around and talked to him again, then that would make more sense. But it was all in the same scene, and all he had to do was mention the Empire. The whole path is up because of the Empire. He knows what the Empire is. He doesn't. So it was weird.
Going back to what you're saying and what you alluded to, I think Priya also alluded to this, is that, do you really think that Reva is his wife?
I know. I thought about it for a second. So there have been some issues with the writing here and there, like we're talking about now, but that would just be a terrible writing decision. So I think it's more likely that it's the child. Otherwise, why show that scene at the very beginning of the entire series? It's like one of the children there. She also hints to Leia in these interrogation scenes a lot about her childhood. So I think that what she's talking about here, about being let down as a child, the Jedis will let you down and stuff like that, she's talking about her childhood. I think what's going on here is that, and someone mentioned this earlier today, and I'm not sure if I read it or I saw it in another video. In the Clone Wars, at the very end, Obi-Wan sent out a message for everyone to stay away from the temple. And she probably feels a certain way about that, because if people came to the temple, maybe people would have been able to save the younglings. Yeah, so she has a special kind of hate for Jedi for not saving her, and specifically Obi-Wan for telling other Jedi to not save her. I think that's probably what's going on there with her.
Or even it just might be, because at one point I think she says, I know what it's like to have everything taken away, which kind of is like the way of the Jedi. Obi-Wan talks about it in the previous episode as well, where he's taken away from his family. So she just might be resenting like the Jedi way.
She was probably very young when she was taken away, and it takes some time to get over being taken away from your family. Maybe as an adult, he probably came to see the Jedi as his family, but as a child, you're just being taken away from your family at 2, 3, 4, maybe. I don't know. Anakin was apparently too old at 10. And it has to be like younger than that. So you're still feeling a certain way, right? And you don't get to understand the Jedi as your family until you're with them for a longer time than you were with your original family. And if that didn't happen for her, the Jedi took her from her family. Then the Jedi didn't come and save her when this other evil force came in. So that's her experience, I think.
Yeah, I think I was also very curious. I felt, and this is Moses Ingram, like just getting those subtleties really well. Like just when they put Leia in that giant torture machine, it's not like she was like slightly hesitant, just like you could see.
She's like, I don't want to do this. And she says it also, she's gonna go through with it. Like I think she would have but you can see that like she is slightly hesitant. And I think this comes back to, Nathan, something you were saying last week about she may not be on either side. She's just on Reva's side, right? Possible. It's possible. And so I really thought as well that we were going to get more Reva backstory this week, especially because like you could get teasings of it. So I guess we have to wait for the penultimate episode. Yeah, I guess that's all Disney shows have to do, a backstory in the penultimate episode. We get flashbacks in the penultimate episode. That's how they do. This was also another callback to episode 1 when they went to the Gungan. So him swimming with the rebreathers to go inside. So yeah, he actually used the Jedi mind tricks just like he did in 4 to distract them with a noise, or maybe a noise that they put in his head.
Yeah, this was completely like episode 4 for me. Obi-Wan sneaking around where he's looking for the tractor beam, and then he does like the false sound with the worst stormtroopers hired.
Yeah, they were trying to save money on clones, and that's what you get. You get incompetence.
I will say though, like the stormtroopers that Tala bonks might be the worst. I'm like, how is it that easy? She just bonks one on the head.
Yeah, I'm gonna just say that she's more trained than that because they are like terrible. They're terrible. She just pulls one of those helmets and then hits the other one on the head. They suck at their job. Like,
yeah, I thought she was a goner in this episode, but I was like, oh no, incompetent stormtroopers to the rest.
Incompetent stormtroopers, and also like everyone's afraid of everyone above them. So that's how she swindles her way in at the very beginning. Everyone's afraid of being reported to their boss because the ultimate boss is like evil. So you keep getting reported up. Everyone's afraid. No one said, I'm gonna report you is always a way to social engineer your way around the Empire, apparently.
Yeah, but this is also very interesting in that you would think that to basically know that there's an imposter. However, it speaks again to the bureaucracy.
She's not an imposter though. She's an actual.
Yeah, but also there's something that she's able to slip through the cracks, and this speaks to the bureaucracy of the Empire, so that things can slip through here and there without any type of people knowing what the heck's going on. Which I find very interesting in a lot of ways because of how as something as too big to fail can also be broken up by people that are infiltrating.
You gotta imagine that this is probably why the soldiers are so incompetent. They have to cover so many different planets. There are probably millions and millions of these stormtroopers across all the planets that they have to cover. So with a force that large, it's a large bureaucracy, and someone's just saying, oh, this is something above your pay grade. It's an easy thing to say because the Empire is just so vast. You just think about how large an army would be just to cover like our planet, and they're covering a galaxy. So it's a massive bureaucracy.
And also if you remember from The Mandalorian, you can also tell the scope of the Empire still in those episodes. Stormtroopers coming in and the ships that they still have, and Moff Gideon's still there. So you can tell how vast it really is still.
I will say that this guy that she was sitting next to, who was when she was talking too loud, why didn't he react when she took this guy around the corner and basically beat him up? Is everyone just like heads down and not like paying attention to anything that's happening? Like I understand there was no one behind him. But she goes off with this guy, but there was another guy sitting there, and there are two guys.
Yeah, and she's blatantly talking to the communicator too, right? It's not like she's whispering in there, but I think it is funny when you see these things. I think I love the fact that she did, because I do love the OG Star Wars a lot. For me, this was like an echo of Episode 4, like down to the communicator and like her leaving it on the table, like 3PO does. There's so many little callbacks that Deborah Chow does. Leia getting rescued and the whole thing. I think it's an echo, but I think you said this, Nathan, earlier, where there's little progress in terms of plot, and I think that's where there's some great set pieces, but the core of the show is so much as like the emotional connections between Obi-Wan and Vader, or was Reva, and none of that. We actually got no exposition on any of that, and I think that for me was a little bit missing.
I would have given this episode like a 6 or 6.5 if they didn't have these corridor scenes with Obi-Wan and all this cool stuff with Obi-Wan, because there's like nothing really happens in this episode to progress any of it.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to point out that you mentioned, Priya, about how this callback to and so forth. The whole context of Luke saving Leia and then mentioning that I'm with Ben Kenobi, it completely changed the context of it. It's like
she was really excited.
I'm here to rescue you. I've got your R2 unit. I'm here with Ben Kenobi.
Ben Kenobi, where is he?
Come on.
Like now looking back on it, you're like, it's not just that she's excited about that he got the message on Tatooine. It's this too. It's wow. So that whole scene is like completely different now.
Completely different, because that's what gets her to follow Luke. Because at first she's like, "Who the hell are you?" And then she's like, "Oh, you're with Ben Kenobi. Let's go." Yeah. It is. I think it's interesting, and I've been reading a little bit also about how we talked. I don't know which episode it was where we were talking about how in the message that she sends at the beginning of Episode 4, she doesn't say, "Hey, remember when you rescued me a bunch of times?"
My father, General Kenobi, you served my father in the Clone Wars.
General Kenobi, years ago you served my father in the Clone Wars.
something that
in the Clone Wars. Yeah, and then there was all this stuff online being like she didn't want the message to get intercepted, and she was being like a very smart rebel leader where she was keeping it like straight to business. There's always going to be continuity questions with this, but I will say, especially after watching this episode, you can see that this is the bridge. I'm definitely going to watch episode 4 as soon as Obi-Wan's done, because I think it's making me like more excited about to see that journey, that final step for Obi-Wan when he becomes like this wise, you know, mage.
Yeah. Although this is another plug for the Clone Wars and Rebels. There's some things that happen to a little bit after this in Rebels as well.
I have started Clone Wars, so if there is an Obi-Wan season 2, I'll be done by then.
But it's very interesting that you mentioned that, because yes, I talked about this last week about the progression, and I think that I talked to a couple of family members about this, and I mentioned before we started the review that they're like more into the OG Star Wars, and I think one of the complaints that they had was that they don't see Obi-Wan as like the action hero that you saw. But I get that basically what I said is that you have to look back upon like the whole progression of how he was and how he was broken. And this is basically a broken, comparatively speaking, very similar to what Luke was in episode 8. And of course, those people that did not like Last Jedi are probably not going to list either, because they see a very broken man in this series. So yeah, Priya, like you said, it will be very interesting. It's very interesting for you to go back to watch episode 4 to say, wow, this is such a great progression from where he's at after we finish Obi-Wan to what he's going to become as he's.
So let me clarify what you're saying. Are you saying that they're saying that they don't like that he isn't the action hero that he should be? Or they're saying that in episode 4 he wasn't an action hero, he was more of a what are you saying there? I
think my family members were much more frustrated with the fact that he's in a weakened state, that he's going through this kind of phase where it's
a journey,
like a hero's journey, but similarly, they also did not like The Last Jedi, where Luke was like depowered in a lot. So if you didn't like Last Jedi, you're probably not going to like this either. And that's what I was trying to bring up.
I don't know that Luke was depowered though in The Last Jedi. He projected his essence across the galaxy to try to.
He was, but at the beginning, he said that he wasn't. He used the Force. Like Rey figured out that he wasn't using it. I think that through the progression of the movie, it led to that. Yes, but at the same time, he was definitely not as in tune, and you saw some similarities to that. And I think that's where the frustration comes from. And also, it kind of raised kind of a symbol of the fans, like, what happened to the old Luke Skywalker? But there's no Rey in this series.
Yeah,
I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Nathan.
I was going to say, I understand what you're saying, but I feel like that's not realistic to how human beings actually act, right? Everyone can't be a badass all the time. Some people have journeys and ups and downs, and I feel like that's far more interesting of a story for an adult to see how people get to being like wise, or how people get to being like strong, because no one is strong all the time, and it's more interesting to see, given where we left it at the end of The Revenge of the Sith, unless they're saying like even 20 years later that they still don't like the prequels. At this point, you have to give up on saying that the prequels don't matter. Unless they're saying that, where we left off at the Revenge of the Sith, it doesn't make sense that he would be okay. It makes more sense that he's not okay right now.
Exactly. To me, it humanizes him. There's no way that, as amazing of a Jedi warrior as Obi-Wan was, after what happened at the end of Revenge of the Sith, how can you not be like at your lowest? Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the point of it, where it makes it like this his journey for redemption, where what the end product is, because you've seen episode 4. And I guess it's true, because people only associate Obi-Wan with the prequel badass action hero, or in the originals where he's already this wise kind of person who knows everything. And this is really the Obi-Wan we don't know, and it probably makes people uncomfortable. But I think it really humanizes him, to be honest. And it's great to see his hope coming back through Leia, and it makes him more prepared for Luke, to be honest.
Yeah. Correct. So that was my point, and I think that you're missing a lot of that journey, and you're missing those kind of flaws, or the times in which you definitely feel failure. And I think that's actually, like you said, Nathan, is very interesting, and why I actually like Last Jedi, because of it, was that type of journey that he made. But to the fans of thinking thinking like Luke saved the day in the originals, blowing up the Death Star and overcoming Vader and the Emperor. Like, to them, it's like, what the hell?
Yeah, life is long and it has twists and turns. I feel like that's more realistic storytelling. It's more realistic storytelling.
I agree. But like I said, I think that's where some of my family members and maybe some fans have that frustration with diminished Jedi for both cases of Luke and Luke.
Yeah, because you're so used to like one image and one perception, and this is giving you a completely different look at the character.
Correct.
Yeah, Nathan, you just went to an image which I wanted to bring up, which was a tomb, which was really intriguing because it's what do they do with the Jedi?
Yeah, so this isn't carbonite. This is they're apparently like some sort of amber or something like that. It is weird because they have some younglings in here as well. Yeah, so it's I don't know. So some people are speculating this is they're trying to make the Rise of Skywalker, the cloning stuff. They're trying to make that movie better by explaining the cloning stuff. Like he was doing cloning experiments all the way back here, even before A New Hope. So that's what they're trying. That's what they're trying to do. I mean, if they can make that movie better, great. I'm all for it. It's interesting. They have a lot of Jedi down here, and like I said, some younglings too.
I didn't recognize any of the characters. I don't know
I know one of them, but the person is from the Clone Wars, so
that's the first one, right? He's supposed to be one of the Jedi from the Clone Wars.
The other one, I don't know. Lots of people were speculating like Mace Windu was down here, but I don't think that's Mace Windu.
I was saying Mace Windu as well. The whole time he was going through, I'm like, please let there be Mace Windu. Please,
I
Mace
don't
Windu.
think it's Mace Windu. It's like behind him. See if I can see it here. Not there.
That almost looked like Thanos.
No, I don't know. There was like a quick. Maybe it's at the end.
I feel like they would have stopped at it though.
Yeah, they definitely would. And also, like, Samuel Jackson is campaigning to come back, even though he was thrown from a skyscraper in the last movie. I don't know how he would have survived that, but
yeah, it's true. No, I think it definitely, because they set that up because when they were looking at the plans, they're like, we have no idea what's underneath. So you knew it was going to be something ominous. So I think it was setting that up. But it does bring that interesting question, like, what are they doing with the Jedi then that they captured?
Yeah, they're obviously preserving them for something, for some reason. This trophy room, I thought, was just like them being barbarous, but like they're preserving them for some reason. So, yeah.
It's probably even like what they're trying to do with Grogu in the Mandalorian.
Yeah, it's the cloning stuff. Yeah, it's likely the cloning stuff. Yeah. So yeah, this is the scene that we were talking about in the dark. He cuts the lights, and then you just see the lightsaber in the dark. I will say one of the technical issues that I mentioned at the top is that the lightsaber doesn't look right. Not here, it looks fine, but in the corridor, so the way that they usually shoot this is that they have them holding a glowing stick, so they actually have something that in their hand, and it looks like they didn't put the after effect on it so that it's wobbling a little bit. It looked too solid in the corridor. I like the corridor scene because of, like I said, he's doing more of his like twirly action stuff. But the lightsaber took me out of it a little bit. It looked a little bit weird compared to even the effects that they had in the 70s. It didn't look as it looked too solid to me. Yeah, this back and forth with her, we get her trying to fake her out. But I do, like I said, the actual staging and the choreography of the scene is cool to me.
It's very cool. It's great to see him becoming more confident with the saber, because the first time he brought it out was against Vader in the last episode, and that was purely defense.
Yeah, he basically took it out just to see in the dark, really, because he was afraid.
Yeah. So I loved it. It was great to see, and I agree. I think the corridor sequence was really cool, and this was also the first time you got to see him using the Force. Yeah. Yes, first like practicing, and that was obviously a very clear thing that his mind and body both need to heal. When he does like the fake sound, and then when he was trying to make sure that the glass doesn't break,
he's getting stronger. I feel like if he were at full strength, like the fact that he had to run away from the water definitely shows he's not in full strength, because he could have probably, if he was at full strength, hold the water back a little bit so he didn't have to run. But he was able to redirect the water down to the other glass when she got away. So I guess he's definitely getting stronger.
Yeah, he is. And just again to like Vivien, Lyra, Blair, she's like in the background most of the scene, but she just gets it. I love their chemistry is so good together. And at the end when she like grabs his hand, I totally choked choked up. I thought that was so good. I would love that. It was so like just such a raw emotional kind of moment where they're giving each other hope, and it's just, yeah, I love that moment with them.
So yeah, that we get to, I think they're sneaking out basically with her as under the trench coat. It's just like, it's just the incompetence of the Empire, because he's obviously just...
I know. I was like, okay, that's gonna have to be like the chunkiest officer they have on the base, because how is it so blatantly obvious to literally everyone except the hundreds of
I don't know,
troopers?
maybe they're off doing on their duties. They're not really paying attention to other people.
The Austin Powers moment, if you remember, it was like, I think it was Austin Powers 2, where he basically was like, oh, it's so funny. It was just like him it just reminded me of that movie, because it was like he was putting mini-me, Powers 3. Anyways, my point is that it was very similar to that. It was almost like a gag type of thing. And I was like, why is it that they're not noticing that whatsoever? Like, are you that crazy? Like, are you like a Dr. Evil type of thing going on here?
Only Reva.
Yeah, I think Reva obviously let them get this far as well, because she, even before she was going to interrogate Leia, she obviously like modified the droid. So I guess she was playing the long game here. Maybe she thought that they were going to come for her. Yeah, she put up a bit of a show here. I think this is also what Darth Vader did.
He does it in episode 5.
Let them get away. Yeah. So yeah, this scene is also pretty good. Usually whenever... This is also a very Star Wars trope. You think that you're surrounded and someone comes in with air support.
I know. I thought they were going to do some really clever escape, but then I was like, okay, those guys showed up out of nowhere.
So yeah, that happens a lot in Star Wars. Air support.
Nobody saw them coming. Yeah. They were so hesitant to come before, and now I'm just going to go for it.
I guess what they said is that no one would attack the base because it's so heavily there's a lot of ships in here. It's kind of crazy to try to attack the base, but I guess you're just picking someone up. So yeah, she gets some nice lightsaber action in here as well. Not as cool as the Obi-Wan stuff, but she does deflect the ship, Wade's ship here with her lightsaber.
I should have guessed she had that, because I was like, she is running real slow compared to how quickly she was running across the rooftops like 2 episodes. I'm like, why does she just run faster? I thought she was going to catch up, but I guess if she had the tracker, then long game is find where the path is as well.
Right here is just put up a bit of a performance to show that you wanted to stop them, and actually even killing this guy, leave the ship that has the tracker intact. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess Vader takes a page out of Reva's book when he does it again with Luke and the gang.
I want to say about this scene gave me a lot of chills, because this is like full-fledged James Earl Jones from like way back. It was scary when he was...
Yeah, the inflection here was awesome.
It was scary as heck. Yeah.
You were warned what defeat would bring. I will tolerate your weakness no longer.
Give you a lot of chills, and I mentioned about this when we were talking, Nathan, is that I wonder if they're going to do this, they're going to put this type of iteration of the voice, the intonations and stuff to Rogue One, because I think that Rogue One was a little off, the voice was a little off, not because of James Earl Jones, but just like in terms of...
It was a little bit because he's an older man and your voice changes as you age. So yeah, and now they're using AI to fix it. So I think he's still doing the performance, and then they're just using AI to make it match what the samples that they have from the 70s.
Oh, it was really well done. The other complaint that one of my family members had was about the fact that they're not using a lot of the original music. So he really was like saying, oh, why aren't they using the Imperial March here when he comes in? And I'm like, that's a very good question. I just don't know why they got leaning in a little bit towards. You heard in some of this episode where Obi-Wan, where there were some hints of the Star Wars theme, but you're not doing this with Vader. I just think that's a missed opportunity.
I think that was a specific creative decision. Now you can quibble about whether or not it was the right decision to make, but I think it was a specific creative decision not to lean on the stuff from the New Hope, because the New Hope is 10 years later and everyone is more established. Obi-Wan isn't a broken down man anymore. Vader is more Vader than probably more confident with his limbs and everything. So they haven't gotten to that place yet. So they haven't earned those musical cues yet. And I think it was a creative decision.
Whenever we see the next saber fight between Obi-Wan and Vader, they have to play Duel of the Fates, surely. That's already established, right? Like that already happened. That was in episode 3.
Unless they construct some new music for that. maybe the new composer has some other ideas. Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe. I think they use it in the trailer. Maybe I'm just like fantasizing, but I think it's such an iconic. It's so iconic to play.
But
that.
even in that duel with episode 3, they didn't really use it that much. They used it in some ways, but if I remember correctly, they really didn't use it. So I don't know. The creative differences here, I would tend to agree is that they should try. I get your point, Nathan, but they should try to use it. If they broke one.
Yeah, I'd said the same thing when they first showed Leia. I'm like, use her theme because it's such an iconic theme. But I get it. I get why they're not. It also feels
it's hard. It's hard. Like I can see it both ways. I hear a lot of commentary about franchises just blatantly pandering to the audience instead of actually doing storytelling. And I can't tell. I haven't decided whether or not that would have been like blatantly pandering to the audience instead of actually trying to pull on an emotional heartstring based upon something that you already like, as opposed to creating something new out of something that you have some affinity for. And there's it's like the line of where that is difficult to tell unless it's like very blatant. I don't know. What was the movie with all the IP? I forget what it was. Space Jam did this very recently where it was just blatant IP in the background. The movie where he's in like a video game and like The Shining is in it and a bunch of other things. This guy is
Ready Player One.
That was just, if you like those scenes, you like them because you like the original stuff, not because they did anything interesting with that stuff. It was just a bunch of stuff. Here's a bunch of stuff that you like. So I don't know if playing some of the scores from the original movie would have been just like stuff that you like as opposed to integrated into the show.
But they did it in episode 3 too when he first appeared as Darth Vader. Did that? They did it in episode at the end of episode 2 with the Imperial March. They did that. So it's like they could do this. Something here, man.
We could still hope.
We have 2 more episodes. We have 2 more episodes.
Even when he first appeared in the, which is still probably my favorite scene ever, with him opening the eyes and then he's like in the back to tank. They should have done it there. It's Darth Vader. Come on.
Or the walk in the last episode where he's like walking down and he's just like strongholding everybody and showing people.
All right, we have 2 more episodes, so they'll bust it out by the end of the episode. And they definitely need to use Hayden Christensen more because he's under the mask all the time, especially if they're trying to make it up to him and all the crap that he got. They got to have some sort of like Jedi dream sequence where he's in his regular body or like a flashback or something.
With the previous episode, they did that.
I mean, he was just like in a mirage. I mean, actually see him act as opposed to with better dialogue than he got in most of the prequels. Now, again, this writing team has had some misses, but their dialogue isn't as clunky as George Lucas's dialogue was in the prequels in general.
You mean the sand quote didn't do it for you, Nathan? The sand quote?
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating. And it gets everywhere.
20-something years later, the sand quote is fine because, you know what, we birthed so many memes and things like that. So that whole scene when...
Or the romantic poem that he gave to Padme that kind of, not fall in love with you now. No, you didn't earn it. Come on, and like you're her. You're basically creeping her.
Again, just this Clone Wars makes those movies better. So watch Clone Wars. And hopefully whatever they're doing now will make Last Jedi better.
Creeping her. It was painfully obvious, bad writing. Bad.
I know. Maybe episode 5 of Obi-Wan is just going to be like flashbacks where it's just going to be like Reva and then episode 6 is going to be like that, like the final kind of battleground before Obi-Wan goes to Tatooine. Who knows? I do think like they have to surely give us some more on Reva next episode. I think it'll be such a shame not to go deeper on her because she's so intriguing.
Not just the character, but the actress, because Disney actually knew, based upon the previous issues that Star Wars fans have had with Black people, what the reaction could be. So, after they leave her backstory until a potential season 2, that's going to piss off a lot of people, and they're not going to get a season 2. Yeah. So they better give us something about what's going on with her. I think Ewan McGregor has said that he's willing to do a season 2, but we can't push that off to another season. We really need to get more information about her to fill her character out and give her motivations some context in the next episode.
Agreed. I did like this ending with just, it's almost like the birth of the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah. Tala says that you're soldiers now, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I like the diversity of the Rebel Alliance. That's looking good.
Yeah, that's definitely a retcon, but yes.
I know, definitely. But I'm like, you have a box check for everybody.
So yeah, that was the end of the episode, and we saw her friend was corrupted, unfortunately. Yeah.
Shouldn't there be like a notice that says like file corruption, like virus infection?
I don't know. That droid doesn't doesn't look like, mostly looks like a toy. So I don't know how much like firewalls or tamper proof it's going to be. It mostly looks like a toy for her. So yeah, her toy droid friend. But yeah, like I said, it was an okay episode, bordering on good, but it was also mostly filler because they didn't advance any of the storylines. Yeah, you guys have anything else? Any other thoughts before we wrap up and get ready for next week? No?
Not much. I think, like I said, I think I enjoyed it, but looking forward to the next two episodes. I think you're right, Priya and Nathan, is that it'll be a disservice if they don't explore Reva's backstory. They set her up to be a compelling character all throughout, and you're not going to do anything with that. You're not. So that would be very shameful of Disney to really not do anything. Based on the backlash that we've heard from John Boyega about how he was kind of...
They used him in the marketing, and it got a lot of people excited about a possible like Black Jedi, and they screwed him over. Not only that hopefully they're getting better about this stuff, given the stance that they took on the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida and their stance with Reva. But like even a couple years ago when they were advertising the Force Awakens in China, they took him off of the poster. So they're getting better about this stuff, but they don't have the best history. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so.
And it'll be interesting to see what their other properties look at. And I sent you something about that, but we can talk about that when it comes.
Yeah. All right, guys. So that is what we think, but we are interested to hear what you guys think. Did we miss anything? Are we completely wrong? So comment down below. Let us know. Subscribe to get more content like this, and we will see you next time. All right, guys. Bye.